Welcome everyone to another episode of Wildlife Photo Chat Video Edition. I'm really excited. We're mixing things up this time. All the previous episodes have been me and Emily. Today I've got Mukul Soman here with me. How's it going, Mukul?
Going great, Ray. I'm so
It's so good to
excited to be
see you.
here.
Yeah, man, so good to see you. Always great to talk with you about everything, but especially photo stuff. You know, you and I can just keep going with it. We love
Yep,
talking this stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, man. So how have you been?
I've been good, been keeping myself busy. It's kind of like the tail end of winter here.
Yeah,
So soaking up the last bit of raptor action up in the Skagit Valley,
nice.
going out every now and then whenever I can. These days I feel like I go out when the weather is really crappy
Yeah.
because I feel that kind of tones down traffic. So there's actually less folks out there and I kind
Oh
of
yeah,
enjoy the quiet a little bit. Yeah,
makes
I've been
sense.
enjoying it. It's been great.
Nice.
And we even
It's
had a rare snow spell. Um, that was
nice.
great to get
Yeah.
the owls in the snow and that kind of stuff without going anywhere far.
The stuff that I've been seeing from you is absolutely amazing as always, man. It really is. Yeah, always
That
appreciate
is
what
very
you do.
kind of you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
your eye for this stuff is great, which is why you're here. And so let's kick it off, man. So I'm showing some new
Yeah.
stuff that I haven't shared anywhere yet. So this is kind of the
hmm
debut of these photos that are going to be coming up in these episodes that we're recording. And I'm going to
hmm
start with this one. This is a Florida scrub jay, and I got to say, I'll just give you a quick setup before I hear your thoughts on this photo. So
hmm
Emily and I recently bought this. It's a 250 millimeter manual focus mirror lens. So it
hmm
creates this donut bokeh, this ring bokeh in the background, and it's from TT Artisan is the company. And we had been playing with this lens for maybe on and off for like the past 3 weeks. And this was
hmm
the first photo I feel like I was finally like, okay, here's the potential for this lens. And
hmm
like we knew the potential was there, but I just felt like I hadn't done it until this photo happened the other day. So I'll just open up the floor, man. What do you think?
Well, one look and my brain just goes, wow, that's beautiful. Right? So I always believe that you can talk about composition all you want. We can talk about lighting all we want. We can talk about all the different pieces of the puzzle that when put together makes a great image. But at the end of the day, it's all about how it makes me feel the very first time I look at it. The
Yeah.
more it allows me to feel that every time I look at it, the more successful an image is. So it's kind of like peeling layers and layers of things, and I can get lost in the image. Like you put this thing, like this photograph that you have, print it and drop it on a wall. I would be like looking at it today morning, tomorrow morning, another day morning, and each day it should kind of peel a new layer for me. And I
Yeah.
feel this image has that quality. So before even diving into any of the artistic technicalities or the photographic technicalities or anything, I just want to throw it out there that this just grabs me and makes me want to wander my eyes through it, like looking at the bird, the surroundings, the primary, secondary elements, the bokeh, it's beautiful, the out of focus elements in general and how they kind of mix and merge and kind of create this very textural quality to it. So that's all awesome. And I'm a big fan when I can see repetition in a frame and it kind of allows
Mm,
me to kind of move my eyes through. And the repetition, if it's too much, it gets too noisy.
yeah.
But I think you just have a good amount of relief here between the circular bokehs because the circular bokehs can get a little too distracting if
Yeah.
just let it be, right? And also, I applaud your decision to shoot into backlight. That every little glint on
Yeah.
the well, I believe this was after a rain.
It was.
Was it a
Absolutely.
spell of rain? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that happens, you have droplets of water that is basically getting backlit, and every little droplet
Yeah.
changes into a lens that amplifies light. And your lens bokeh is really working with all of that well. Um, I think it's beautiful. I even love the two little small droplets that you frame the bird in between, right?
Total
You've got
accident
one
there, but
on the
yes.
yeah. I mean, the fact that they are
You're right.
there's a gap in between each of them and the bird, right? They're
Yeah.
not
Pretty
literally
there.
none of them, even a little one below that on the right
Yeah.
side, none of them are really quite cutting into the bird. And I'm a big fan when things are placed where they
Yeah.
don't tangent into each other. Even the two
Yeah.
leaves that are out of focus are from the coconut trees or the palm trees, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Um, they also frame the bird really well. So there's a lot of great stuff happening on the left side of the frame. If you just crop the left side alone, that is a
Totally.
full photograph,
Yeah.
right? And then the out of focus leaves on the ground, those palm leaves,
Yeah, down in here.
yeah, down in here, they all do the job really well for me. The couple of things that jump at me as I'm kind of fighting a little bit to focus back on the bird is the bokeh in the middle,
Yeah,
right to the right side of the
right
bird.
in there. Yeah.
That those, and then there's a bokeh on the right side, right in the middle, one singular bokeh that is very bright.
Yep.
Those elements sort of wrestle with the your main element for me.
Totally agree.
And that's not a good or a bad thing. I'm just observing and I'm just saying
Yeah.
that it does. So it all depends on what your intention is. Right now, bird is looking to the right, and it almost feels like this is a dream.
Yeah.
A lot of textural qualities of that dream floating around. So if that's the intention, I'm totally buying this. However, maybe a tiny little more glint in the eye,
Yes.
or a an opposite, which is kind of bringing down those few rings back by
Yep.
say 25% might just make this hierarchically even more perfect than what it already
Very
is.
much agree with you. And I got a question for you. You know, one of the first things you mentioned is like the different subjects in this. And I'd love to hear sort of the hierarchy of what do you think some of those subjects are to you in this? You know, my hope is
Yeah,
obviously the bird is number one. But then following
absolutely.
that, what do you, where does your eye go?
Yeah, absolutely. The bird is number one. And then the secondary elements for me could be the bokeh. It could be a story of the bird and the bokeh, with the palm leaf at the top being the tertiary element framing everything.
Yep.
That's kind of like how it feels to me in terms of visual importance. And it's always a good thing for us to know what our intention is
Yeah.
when we present a photograph, right? When you're photographing, sometimes intentions are not there because we are reacting to visually what is available to us. So the act of photographing is actually different from the act of uh, picking the photograph. You come back and you look at these photographs that you took, and you're from a group of 20 photographs. You start picking one or two or three based on what visually spoke to you and what made sense to you for the story that you're trying to tell. And in this frame, for me, it's the dream that's kind of like what I'm feeling. It's the dream,
Yeah.
and it's a dream with the bird being the primary element and the bokeh being the secondary element
Yeah.
of importance in the frame, and everything else, which is like the background, the palm leaves, all of that kind of become like the tertiary framing elements that kind of ground it all in that environment. You know.
That's definitely I love hearing that because it's really cool. Just like you said, I think so many times in the field we can't or don't have the time to really think about those kinds of things. But in this one, I did. Like, thankfully, like these birds, for anybody that's not familiar with them, they're super cooperative. They're just real friendly and curious. And so he went there and he was actually still all wet, so he was shaking out and preening, and he just sat on that branch for a while and gave me some time to actually move around and think about and try to plan all of that. The one big change I would have made is I would have loved to have chosen like a little bit of a higher perspective just to shift all of these hanging palms up just a little bit of relief off of how kind of how far they came into the frame. But I couldn't make myself any taller, right? I was already like up getting as high as I could, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
physical limitations, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So, and
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't, I gotta say, if it wasn't a manually focused lens, I may have actually tried to hold the camera up and use the flip screen and autofocus because I've done that in the past just to get that extra height. But with the manual
Yeah.
focus lens, I knew I had no chance of getting anything remotely sharp and making that work. So I
Right.
just kind of was at the the limit of my own height. But um,
Right.
I did like every chance I got for any one of these birds was all about shooting into that light because, like you said, and it's really cool that you picked
Yeah.
it out. Like you knew it was
Yeah.
right after a rainstorm. It had actually rained on us, and then the sun came out, and then the birds came out and started like just being really active. And I was just running around trying to shoot into it every single time because I knew that's where that lens was going to shine.
Yeah, and again, going back to the very first thing I said is that it just grabbed me, and it's those photographs that I can keep going back to and keep looking at, and my eyes would find new things in it. And that's the quality of a great photograph for me. I also want to touch upon one more thing that
Yeah,
I think is really good here is the very subtle adjustments you have done in selectively burning some parts of the image, meaning pushing it back
yeah,
in terms of luminosity, especially around the edges. I think that really works. It's bringing my eyes back into the frame. There's one thing that can happen when you're shooting backlight is it's very easy for random specks of brightness to start peeking through here and there.
totally.
And I think you beautifully control that first in your exposure and second in your processing. And I think that all works really well to my eye.
One of the biggest challenges I find with any new piece of gear, specifically a lens for me, and it's specifically lenses that tend to have these interesting effects that I've tried. I've played with like a Lens Baby tilt shift. This is my second Donut Bokeh lens. I had a 500 millimeter one. This is a 250. I've played with really extremely wide angle stuff. The thing that always is a challenge for me is to not let still have it be a good photo and not let whatever effect that lens is doing just take over and carry the photo. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be a good photo just because there's Donut Bokeh back there. Because
you don't want it to be.
It's easy to do that. It's so
Right.
easy to fall into that trap with these specialty lenses.
Yeah, I feel like what you're saying basically is you don't want it to be just a gimmick. You want it to
Exactly.
be more
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah,
Totally.
totally.
I
Yep.
hear you. I think
And
from that perspective, this is very successful.
and that's why I said in the beginning, this was like the first one I feel like I did, because I've shot a lot of images with it already, and every time I see this Donut Bokeh, I'm like, ooh, it's so different. It's not something we're used to seeing, and so I have to like kind of argue with myself or fight that urge to be like, oh, this is great, let me share it, and just kind of be like, well, is the rest of the photo really there to carry this, And this was the first time I felt like it finally was, and so yeah, this is hence me picking it to share in this one.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for sharing. I
yeah,
definitely
dude.
enjoyed looking at it, and I'm still looking at it. I'm still this entire conversation, my eyes have been traveling through the
Yeah,
photograph.
yeah.
So thank you for that. Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this one, and we'll see everybody on the next episode when we take a look at one of Mukul's photos.
All right. No pressure.